So I'll officially start the event. I need to say thank you to Arts Council England, who supports the festival. I also need to say thank you to T Newydd Writing Centre in Wales, who generously sponsors the Ledbury Poetry Competition with a residential course for the adult winner. We're very grateful. They've supported us for many years. And also a big thank you to Daljit Nagra for judging this year. And I'm going to introduce Daljit properly soon, but thank you, Daljit. And Daljit also came to the rehearsal we had on Thursday, which was great. Thanks so much for coming to that. So a little bit about our competition. It's nearly 25 years old, and it has been instrumental in launching the careers of many poets. We pride ourselves on our lasting relationship with competition winners. And we really do try and cultivate those relationships, and we're always interested to know how you're getting on and your new collections. Children and young people winners, we always invite you back to be interns for the festival, or if you've got any ideas. So we just want to make that clear that it is a lasting relationship with you, and we're always interested in what you're doing. I'm particularly delighted that we can run this event because it's really lovely to be able to showcase the winners and the readers in this way. It looked like we weren't going to be able to do it, so I'm just so delighted that we can offer this. And ironically, because the competition is international, it actually means that it's easier for some of our international winners to attend. So listen out for some fantastic poetry, but B, some really interesting accents. You'll get to hear those. And just finally, this year's competition is still open. You can still enter, so this might be you next year. We've got children, young people and adult categories, and the deadline for entries is Thursday the 16th of July. So do please enter the competition. The links are on our webpage. So I'm going to introduce Daljit, who will then introduce the children readers. So Daljit Nagra's 4 poetry collections, all with Faber and Faber, have won the Forward Prize for Best Individual Poem and Best First Book, the South Bank Show Decibel Award and the Cholmondeley Award. Daljit has also been shortlisted for the Costa Prize and twice for the T.S. Eliot Prize. Daljit is a PBS New Generation poet whose poems have appeared in The New Yorker, the LRB and the TLS, and his journalism is in the FT and The Guardian. He is the inaugural poet in residence for Radio 4 and 4 Extra, and he presents the weekly Poetry Extra and serves on the Council of the Royal Society of Literature and teaches at Brunel University, London. So over to you, Daljit, and thank you once again.
Okay, thank you for that lovely introduction. And maybe I'll just mention the Poetry Extra every Sunday at 5. So tomorrow I've got a programme about a collaboration between poets from Wales, from Machynlleth and Mumbai. I think I've got the Welsh name right. And I know we're not here physically, but I just want to draw attention to my 2 bowls from my physical presence, the days when I attended physically. This is one from 2007, and this is one from 2009. I'm not sure if we do bowls anymore, but you've got badges, so that's great. But anyway, I just want to show you how the quality of the products here are so good that I'm still using them. So thank you. I'll just say a few words about the judging, which was a great joy. And I like judging prizes. I get invited to do various things, but I really enjoy judging prizes because when you see a good standard of writing, it makes you challenge your own work. And also that kind of investigative journey that you make to discover the best poems. I really enjoy sifting, going back and sifting, try and get to about 50 poems and then to a final cohort. And this year, I found it, with the Ledbury Prize, I found it really difficult to pick the top 3 for each category. There were actually, and I'm sure you saw some of those, Philippa, there were so many outstanding poems in that final group of about 20 really strong poems. and I kept reordering them until I kind of landed on my favourites and let them settle there. And you're really aware of your own preferences. You're not sure if you're just picking certain poems because they feel right to your own aesthetic. So you try and depart from that as far as possible. So I tried my best to not think of what I would like in relation to my own work. So hopefully we have a range of styles coming through today. And I'm really proud of the winners. I think they're fantastic poems. So hopefully people will enjoy hearing them and then seeing them as well. Okay, so should we make a start then with the children's winners? So we're going to go first, second, third for the children, and then there'll be some applause, and then we'll do young people first, second, third, and then for the adults we'll go in reverse order, third, second, first. Yeah. Okay, so our winner of the children's category, and I'll just say a few words about that I'd written at the time, was a poem by Aurora B. Blue, The Cat That Nobody Wanted. And I said it was a wild and hugely inventive poem that the great Stevie Smith would have been proud to have written. So many exciting poems go in one direction and veer off and release their freedom of the mind, and that's the case here. The poet tells us about a neglected cat, door-to-door salesman, and enters Dr. Seuss territory with a cat up the bag. There's puns, misdirections, and relaxed, free looping lines that create for a hugely enjoyable poem, and from a very young person, so hugely talented. So can I pass over now to Aurora B. Blue to read her poem and maybe say a few words about her poem?
I am Aurora B.E. Blue. I am age now 11. I have been writing poetry for 5 years, and I like reading and writing comical poetry, which has a serious twist or message hidden. I might write about food, puzzles, dreams, or environmental issues. I had first place in Ledbury 2018 and 2019, first in the Village Dennis Stratford 2020, third place in the Chaucer Heritage, and second place in the Elmet 2018, also the Shepton Mallet Snowdrop winner, and others. I am co-editor of the Outlaw magazine for junior members of TARS, which is the Arthur Ranson Society, and I make a lot of art, and I like writing about appearances and telling the truth or not. The cat that nobody wanted, or the door-to-door salesman. There's a cat that nobody wanted, that was brought down our road by a man in a van, shouting, "Anyone want a little cute black kitten?" No one did. Next morning I found, dead and frozen on the pavement, the cat that nobody wanted. Its black fur looked grey, eyes set in frozen stare, tail outstretched stiff, and no collar. But then, anyone want a cat? I have, long or short-bodied, large or slim, brown or black, fat or flat, or tabby or tortoise shell, that will show up and go well with your carpet. Or how about a surprise cat in the bag? So, does anyone want a cat? Yes, said an old man. I'll have a black. Yes, said an old man. I'll have a cat, but not a cat in the bag. I'll have a tortoise shell that will show up against my carpet. Hey, said the salesman, you let the cat out of the bag. On the frozen pavement lay the stiff, dead, grey kitten.
Wow, fantastic, Aurora. It's an amazing poem. And if any of you get a chance, please have a look at it online to see the lineation, the way Aurora's laid the poem out. It's a really exciting visual experience. Okay, move on to our second prize, which is Maxwell Heavens, wonderful name, Maxwell Heavens' poem, Imagine a World Without Any Laws. And I just said it's a wise poem that is serious and cautionary and reminds us of our troubled times. I love how the rhyming couplets and carefully sequenced pairs of thought build momentum to show us how horrible the world could become if we didn't respect laws. And as Maxwell says, everywhere guns would be shot. We would all be feral as an ocelot. So it's a poem of warning, but ultimately gratitude that we have just enough sanity to protect our rights. So Maxwell, are you there? This is your turn to shine.
I'm just scrolling through the participants and I can't see Maxwell here. We could perhaps come back, do another call out, Daljit, at the end.
Yeah, we'll move on to third prize then.
Yeah, but yes. Shall we hear Maxwell's poem or should we wait?
I don't have it in front of me right now, but
I have it. By the way, all of these poems are available on the festival website on the competition page. So I can tell you a little bit about Maxwell. Maxwell Heavens lives with his mum, dad, brother, and dog Izzy. I love animals, especially dogs, and I'm a keen martial artist. I have been training as a kickboxer for 6 years and recently started jiu-jitsu a year ago. My favourite subjects in school are computing and science, and you can always find me with my head in a book. Since a very young age, I have always loved reading all types of poetry, from World War II poems to funny limericks. And this is Maxwell's poem, Imagine a World Without Any Laws. Imagine a world without any laws. Imagine that world with all those flaws. People wouldn't need any money. Now, wouldn't that be funny? Murders and harassments would be everywhere. People on the road wouldn't care. Everywhere, guns would be shot. We would all be as feral as an ocelot. Everywhere, people would lie dead. With all the blood, the floor would be red. Every window would be shattered. All curtains and clothes would be tattered. All the shops would be robbed. Everything would be daubed. All the planes would crash and fall and break and kill us all. Let's stop thinking of all the flaws and just be thankful that we have laws.
wonderfully read there, Philippa. I like in the chat room there, Ken Evans has said, kickboxing and poetry, useful combo. Useful combo indeed. Okay, so I'll move on to our third prize winner as Han Fang with Big Eats Small. And hopefully Fan's there. Han is there. Sorry, I mismerged Han Fang. Just a few words about the poem. It's a short and fantastic poem that takes us back to children's stories of being swallowed up by bigger things. The compression into a few lines is hugely impressive and shows us the danger of bigger or more powerful forces. Climate change seems to hang at the back of the final couplet, which is, and then the mouth of endless, lifeless time devoured all that lived upon the earth. Good poets pick words carefully, and how shocking is the use of the adjective lifeless when describing what will become of us all. The reference to dinosaurs and the drawing under the poem, there was a few drawings there in the poetry, again showed us the poet having a really good time and that they can play. So it's essential to poetry. So I'm going to hand over now to Han Fang, assuming Han is there, Philippa.
No, he was the one, wasn't going to be able to. I mean, Maxwell was going to be here, but Han wasn't. So I shall just give a little bio for Han and read Han's poem. Han Fang moved to the UK a few years ago. He lives in Oxford with his parents. Han is really interested in the natural world and loves reading and writing about animals. He plays the violin and piano, and he is an expert at Minecraft. So this is his poem, Big Eats Small. A bee came flying through the autumn sky. Then came a quick bluebird, which ate the bee. Then came an eagle, preying on the bird. Then came a hungry, toothless dinosaur, which swallowed up the eagle in one gulp. And then the mouth of endless, lifeless time devoured all that lived upon the earth. So,
fantastic. Thank you, Philippa.
Thank you, Han.
So, did you want to do a group applause at this stage, or do we move on to the young people's winners?
I'd like to give a group applause. I think we need to try this. So for the first time, we're going to do a great big group applause, and
this is for all three children's winners.
Yeah, for all the three children's winners.
Countdown. 3, 2, 1, clap. Brilliant, that worked. Well done, Aurora, Maxwell, and Anne. So moving on to the young people.
Just 1 minute, Saljit. Sorry, I'm going to mute all. If you could unmute yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm ready to go.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to announce the winner of the young people's competition, and that's Sia Mangat with Planet Earth, 2 Cities. And I wrote an incredibly inventive, witty, audacious, intelligent, and ultimately moving poem. The 3 monologues we're going to hear are carefully developed to convey the theme of a dying planet alongside an ageing David Attenborough. The latter becomes a symbol, for me at least, I think it's there in the poem anyway, of nature's last ambassador amongst humans. Each section is vivid, and I especially love the middle section with its missing vowels. So I'll be interested to see how Sia pulls that one off today in her reading. Yet these missing vowels don't stop us from making full sense, actually. It's a very readable section. And the final section refers to Attenborough's arms as thick and varicose. Pretty sad. And I love how the form itself is no longer in conventional poetic shape. So even this adds to the drama of loss. The poem's about the poem is losing the poetry form. Yet there is hope in the final section, and we see this incredible tonal control of the poet. And I think this poet's a proper star in the making. And I judged the Foyles Young Poet competition recently, and she was one of the winners there. And she's a winner this year in the Foyles, and I got the pamphlet from the Poetry Society yesterday. She's got a fantastic love poem in there. So we're going to see a lot more, I'm sure, of Sia Mangat. So Sia, would you like to read us your wonderful poem, please?
Right, thanks for that, Thorji. This poem is, like you said, it's after an episode of David Attenborough's Planet Earth 2. I think it's still on iPlayer, but I'll have to check. No, see Planet Earth 2 episode Cities, in which turtles hatch and are naturally drawn to the moon. The draw of city lights, however, throws them off, so the crabs bury themselves directly beneath the beach lights and wait for their prey to come to them. 1. David Attenborough to the turtles. Listen, I'm still here and I can feel sand crawling up my shoulders in the shower. Listen, I swear I'm plagued by the thought of turtle hatchlings swarming into my ears, covered with sand. Listen, I love you and I'm sorry for calling you a plague. I'm sorry for shouting at you in dreams over the tire-screeched sea. Sometimes I look out the window and the moon spits at me for letting the city copy light. Sometimes I see trees full of leaves that tremble like your flippers. However hard I scrub the folds of my back, I can't get rid of the sensation of hard wooden shell. I'm sorry the black plastic camera crew did nothing to subdue it. These days I have taken to sleeping on my front, like this, like you. 2. The turtles to the crabs. Oh, night of cold, we surfaced. From nests we came, hoping for water, for moonlight. Thank you, crabs. Try to picture 80% of your species lost, disorientated, wrong direction. Thank you, at least it wasn't birds. Predators? Picture being dropped from the sky. Wouldn't you rather be cracked by claws than smashed on rock? Oh, night of cold, thank you. Here, the whole cosmos seems silver. Thousands of moons just for us. Thank you, crabs. We miss you. Good night. 3. The crabs to David Attenborough. David, we love your soundtrack, see, and I wave our or my pincers heads to the soft music when we can, undulating in received pronunciation when it comes to us, me, wait. Can you hear us, these? Some nights I contemplate reconstructing huge black beasts with cornered elbows you brought into the midst of our habitat, welcoming us, predators? David, sometimes we contemplate its rolling glass eyes, how your arms look more like our or my beaches, thick and varicose than they did before. If you can hear me, us, please acknowledge the cheek marks I or we gave you. If you can hear us, me, stop panicking about the blare of the street's metal beasts with moon eyes. Stop panicking. I will stay with you for the whole night, promise. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sia. Wonderful reading. I'm sure we'll see more of you in years to come. Just before we move on to our second winner, in the chat room, someone asked for a link to the poems, and Rose Brennan has put a link up. So if anybody wants a link to the actual poems, it's there in the chat section, so you can just go and find it there. Okay, our second prize is Lydia Way with Section 49 quiz, the People's Republic of China. I love how so many contemporary poets seem to be turning their backs on the conventional idea of the poem by creating their own little forms. This seeming quiz in this poem chooses to call itself a poem, well, why not? I enjoyed the questions because they each offer a series of true and fictional responses. We have history by the back door through poetry, but also poetry through its engagement in history. The poet has mocked the great leader of China and his legacy, and reminds us of the way tyrants invent the past, the present and the future. There are so many outstanding lines in this poem, so I'm not going to mention any, but just invite Lydia to take over here and offer us an interpretation of this Q&A.
So this poem, I wrote it after a trip to China, and it was just interesting for me at the time, like seeing the differences between like the Chinese perspective on the People's Republic of China versus the American perspective, and also even within China, sort of the different camps and the different beliefs that everyone sort of holds on the legacy of the People's Republic of China. And so I ended up thinking that a quiz was maybe the best form to sort of hold all of these contradictions within. And now I'll read the poem. Section 49 quiz, the People's Republic of China. How was the People's Republic of China born? A, out of the barrel of a gun and the whites of the Kuomintang's eyes. B, from his flesh which became the farmer's fields, from his left eye which became the revolutionary sun, from his right eye which became the sickle moon. C, a leftover dream of the starved peasants, scraped grains from the bottom of the cracked rice bowl. D, a prayer declared from the blood-stained gates of the capital. Who was the founder of the People's Republic of China? A, martyr of the peasants, of the landless, of the illiterate, of the forgotten. B, landowner's son with a rural Hunanese accent, cut off his cube pigtails with scissors delicate as cranes. C, red emperor born from the flames of staghorn dragons, cupped this ancient nation and downed its elixir of life. D, liar, murderer, tyrant, God. What were the consequences of the Great Leap Forward? A, the lion bared as a stray dog, licking his wounds in a corner of the shed. B, the earth betrayed, metallic soil assaulted, gnarled roots of river trees sawed by the starved. C, question marks of shrunken bodies buried in the fields, parched crops curled beneath unanswered supplications. D, government reports, falsified figures. What were the principal components of the Cultural Revolution? A, ransacked temples, smashed caisson shards raining down like shrapnel from the heavens. B, scarves that slashed the blackness as a dimple-cheeked teenager kissed her vermilion fists, laughing. C, his painted face, plastered on bustling street corners and found in dusty mirrors. D, red, beastly, venomous, obsessive red. What is the legacy of the People's Republic of China? A, a frayed poster hung in Gu Po's crumbling house, where she scattered seeds for her naked chickens to bite off the sun. B, pitiful anecdotes as Oxford academia shake their heads disapprovingly, but they'll never understand the poppy's bloodlusted perfume. C, some souvenirs of history, gap-toothed Jinganshan hawkers with pencil holders and t-shirts and calendars and watches. D, what was once fierce-browed has sunk its fangs in its ideals, now crackles bitter red, merciless.
Brilliant, thank you, well read. Amazing. Just going to echo someone from chat room saying, where was it? It was Margaret Royal saying, amazing poetry from the young people, well done all. And the final young winner, fantastic poem, and it's a short one from Rose Brennan, The Sound of Waiting, and it's quite rare to have a short poem win a prize in a competition, but it's so beautifully constructed, and it's about music, and in turn it's about poetry and the music of life. That kind of really overwhelmed by the happiness that it brought in me. I love the rich internal echoes that run through these precise and interestingly lineated lines. It's very sort of meticulous. And I enjoyed the paradox of the void, the key idea in the poem, I think, the silence as being essential to the music and the collective intake of breath, as I said, that an audience makes. So short, precise, delicate, wonderful. So we're going to have our best ears on to hear this brief experience from Rose Brennan. Are you there, Rose?
Yes, I am. Hello. So I'm a student. I study history, French and literature in Herefordshire. I wrote this poem after I went to a concert at school, and it was kind of set in the bit between where they're sort of changing acts and everything's a bit silent and it's a little bit uncomfortable, and I was really struck by that moment. So my poem is called The Sound of Waiting. In the void between, the tension builds, discordant note held for a little too long, the crescendo of electric silence, a static force of nothingness, the collective intake of breath, and then, out of open mouths, pours a school of notes, the one might call music. That's me done.
Well done. So, Philippa, we're going to have a round of collective applause for Lydia, Rose, and Sia. Okay, so Philippa, should we move on to the winners?
Yes, please.
Okay, so third prize goes to Denise Bundred with Anatomy Theatre, and it's a poem inspired by a painting about an autopsy, where the painting shows a surgeon holding aloft the woman's heart. In the poem, the perverse male gaze is deepened to show the historic joy of scrutinising females from the insides. It's a chilling, politically challenging poem that reveals a surgeon's pride and flaws, imagined through the most exquisite sequence of rhythms, line breaks, spatial and sound effects. So I was just hugely impressed by the synthesis of scientific information, all those Latin medical terms, with the kind of simple diction that sits alongside them in this predominantly triple rhythmed poem. So it's kind of quite springy, light, and the music vies with the methodical manners of the surgeon. This subtle poem hints at backstory while always focusing on the necessary anatomizing of the woman. And it's very hard where to place this. I gave it third in the end, but it could have been higher. So I'll hand over now to Denise. She's there.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much indeed, Dalda. As a cardiologist, this painting intrigued me. But it was only when I decided to write in a number of different voices that I could actually get it to work. So it's actually now a sequence of poems in the voice of the artist, the doctor, the young woman herself, her unborn child, whom I've imagined, and also the heart itself. Anatomy Theatre. And she had a heart, E. Simone, oil on canvas, 1890. Simone asked to observe my autopsy. I refused. I know he painted her, perhaps more than just her face. Internally, there's a different intimacy. Dark nipples suggest what I now fear to find. No bruising on her neck or arms. Down her back, livid stains show how she lay after death. I am anxious to explore her heart. It repeats its cadence in my ears. I trace a line from throat to diaphragm. Divide breastbones, splay ribs, reflect pleura and retract lungs. Their sponginess is lost in a congestion of blood. I dissect veins and arteries to free the heart from its attachments. I lift it from the cavity. A draught from the high window shivers gaslight onto silver pericardium. Its fibers are impenetrable to all but the sharpest blade. I hold a troubling heaviness in my hand, recall murmurings from my stethoscope in her shadowed room. The weight tells of a fault I failed to hear. I suspend the scale on a hook and place the heart in the bowl below. The needle swings and loses equilibrium.
Fantastic. Thank you very much there. So losing equilibrium at the moment. Great last line. Okay, so we're going to move on to second prize, but before that, I guess in the adult.
Sorry, Dalton. We were going to give Denise the chance to read a couple more of her poems. And I've also got a very quick bio for Denise, which might help in the light of the beautiful poem we've just heard. So if I could just do a bio for Denise, and Denise is going to read a few more poems for us. Denise Bundred was a consultant paediatric cardiologist in Liverpool and has an MA in creative writing. She is a fellow of the Royal College of Physicians and won the Hippocrates Prize in Poetry and Medicine in 2016, coming second in 2019. Her poems have appeared in anthologies, including the Hippocrates Prize Anthologies 2012 to 2019, the Book of Love and Loss, and the Winchester Poetry Competition Anthology of 2016. She has poems in Envoy, Under the Radar, and Magma, and her debut pamphlet, Litany of a Cardiologist, was published, unfortunately, in March this year and launched, but there's going to be a launch later on in the year. So I'll just hand over to Denise for a few more of her poems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philippa. A cardiologist seeks certainty. I spread cold gel on a newborn chest, rest the probe on creamy skin, angle between ribs, rotate to find a heart no larger than the tiny hand pushing me away. 2 dimensions defy translation into 3 as I locate chambers amid the maze of vessels. A millimeter of movement and the image melts to a snowstorm on my screen. I retrace arcs of ultrasound to relieve the twist of doubt. Adrenaline dries my saliva as I strive to decide whether the aorta arches to the left or right. The nurse checks the prescription against an ampule, initials in black ink, secure in her certainty of drug and dose. The surgeon weighs my words to determine his incision and shape his operation as the incubator trundles towards theatre, escorting mother and the nurse. I resolve inconsistencies into diagnosis, wipe the sweat from my hands, write my notes, make my decision. These poems are all from my pamphlet, and the next one I'm going to read is the title poem. And I was thinking of the words that I used when I discussed a child's condition with colleagues and how those words changed when I was speaking to the parents of the child. And the poem is in couplets, and the first line contains the medical terms, and the second line, the words I might use to parents. Litany of a cardiologist. Cyanotic, hypotensive, acyanotic, blue, mottled, pink, as in baby. Systole, diastole, asystole, contract, relax, stop, as in heart. Arrhythmia, bradycardia, tachycardia, abnormal, slow, quick, as in beat. Pansystolic, ejection, vibratory, long, crescendo, musical, as in murmur. Stenotic, incompetent, bicuspid, narrowed, leaky, deformed, as in valve. Hypertrophic, hypoplastic, dilated, thickened, unformed, enlarged, as in ventricle. Dyspnea, crepitation, syncope, breathless, crackles, faint, as in failure. Congenital cardiac anomaly, born with heart disease, as in child. Another part of the work that I did was to scan babies before they were born if there was a suspicion of a heart condition, and then to discuss with parents what that would mean for a child after birth. And in this poem, I'm speaking directly to the baby's heart. addressing a fetal heart. Stem cells divide you into chambers and valves, muscle swells and fibers bind. Endocardium unfolds a film within, like sunlight on dark water. Progress is orderly until a scattering of cells in the aorta fails to form. You stumble like a child in full flight on a in a shell. After that, cell division, each heartbeat, shape and cast fuse into
We seem to be having difficulty with Denise's connection. Yes, people are noting that the signal has frozen. I'm sorry, Denise, if you can hear us. Hopefully, we've all got a flavour of your really incredibly powerful poetry, and we'll hope to get a link to your new collection on the website. But I'll just hand back over to Daljet to introduce the next prize winner.
Okay, sorry to lose you there, Denise. That was really sad, but I'll definitely have to get the pamphlet actually. So if we get the, we'll can order it online, can't we? So our second prize winner is Sarah Wimbush with Bloodlines, and it's a linguistically charged and visually dynamic poem that foregrounds a fascination with identity. The speaker imagines what remains of them as a gypsy now and what they've lost of this historic identity. The poem is part serious meditation on belonging to a minority group and part playful with several mischievous moments. The formal structure is actually stunning. The shape is worked at carefully so line breaks hit the mark, so that neither meaning nor urgency are impeded by the mazy journey that I must make as it reads the poem, going across and downwards. And I love the strategic use of gypsy words integrated into the poem. They remind us of the excitement of being plural. So I encourage you all to have a visual look at the poem at some point, but right now I'm going to hand you over to Sarah Wimbush.
If I could interrupt, and I've just got a bio for Sarah here, if that's okay. Sarah Wimbush recently released her Mslexia prize-winning poetry pamphlet Bloodlines with Seren, which explores her traveller heritage. She received a Northern Writers Award in 2019, and she is a winner of the 2020 Poetry Business Book and Pamphlet Competition. Her Smith doorstop pamphlet, The Last Dinosaur in Doncaster, will be available in February 2021. And if I could just alert you to, on the festival's YouTube channel, we've got a beautiful film poem of Sarah's winning poem, Bloodlines, which is able to be seen on our YouTube channel. And I just have the poem here, if you can see it. That's what the poem looks like, and that's what Daljet's talking about, a visual journey. So over to Sarah, thank you.
Hi, thanks. Thank you both. Thank you, Ledbury, for organising this event, giving us the chance to read, much appreciated. And thank you to Daljet for picking my poem out. So my Ledbury poem, Bloodlines, became the title poem for my debut pamphlet, and like Daljet said, it's essentially a poem about identity and the wonder of having a traveller heritage with all its gypsy culture and Romany language. So in this poem, there is some Romany word. Well, there are some Romany words. Vado is a horse-drawn caravan. Achintans are stopping places. Chor is to take or steal. Gorja is non-gypsy, and Bavel is the wind. Bloodlines. In the bloodlines, there's a hooped earring. In the bloodlines, there's an open Vardo door, Ramson's on the other side. Songs and seasons wave at you from the bloodlines. Achintans watch you fly. In the bloodlines, there's an acorn of swagger that inflates into a barrel wearing a vest. In the bloodlines, there is nothing to offer up to the old world except a pair of chamois booties, your past, their past. Bloodlines stare, bemused by the chant of tables, a company car, lunch. Bloodlines hoik slingshots at woodcock and snipe. Damp earth is a must as you lie with the bloodlines. Some scratch the name of the wind into elm with a crochet hook. Others chaw lollipops from children. Bloodlines can't hear you, but they follow you in a handful of photographs and crumpled vowels, the shortening clay pipe, Gorgia folky. In the bloodlines, you make yourself make steamed pudding, then eat salad. In the bloodlines, there's a long blue thread. In the lee and the lanes, there must be someone who can tell you about the bloodlines, about the rhythm of your tongue, your flying fox glare, the need to set curtains ajar at night. What are you searching for in the darkness? Why are you? And yet it's the bloodlines that murmur on the Barvel, bloodlines that understand the spell of a campfire, your attraction to gold. How if I shook my pale face from gullet to hairline, the world would turn scarlet, and all that pours out will be road. Sorry about that. Hesitating. So I'm just going to read two other poems. So this second poem is a little sonnet about Uncle George, who was a bit of a rogue, but no man is just one thing. And in this poem, Chaves means children. Ah, Judd. Sometimes he dug the ditches out on Selby Hall estate and thrashed his sister's man after he'd slapped her across the face, and often carried water for his mother from the ooze, and thieved 10 shilling great war pension off his brother Hugh, and sang like an angel and played grass like a tin whistle, and rarely missed a fisticuffing down the old blue bell. And that time calmed the lady's filly bolting up the road, and couldn't write his name, but nose to tailed a bookie's board, and got away with it that night those stew balls went amiss, and took a fair old beating 'cause he loved that married lass, and didn't give a monkey's or ailed one day in his life, and always wanted Chaves, but never fancied a wife. First to rise for threshing, last in a cock-fighting wager, the man named after kings and coins and a dragon slayer. So they're both out of my pamphlet, Bloodlines. And this last poem, if I've got time, have I got time? So this last poem is from my poetry business pamphlet, The Last Dinosaur in Doncaster, which is coming out in February. And this poem is really about when I was 18 and the miners' strike started, and the world that I grew up in began to change. And this poem is a collection of memories about that time, and it's called Near Extinction. Oops, I've lost it. Wrong one. Near Extinction 1. No otters in the River Don. No rest for Sylvia Grant Dalton, upholding Broadsworth Hall. Subsidence scribbled on the wall. The roof a drain. Gardens besieged. A losing battle. Down the lane, Brian at Broadsworth Pit, with his mullet and denim jacket, wind swept, sun kissed, convinced they can turn the tide in landlocked South Yorkshire. 2. Rosington, like Beirut. Mrs. Selby watching ghosts of picket line past, burned out cars, burned out hearts. Mr. Selby in his chair, waiting for the snowdrops. An action shot of Leslie Boulton, camera in hand, the raised baton, a pin-up girl at Highfields Welfare. Wives on battle stations in the soup kitchen. Men fed first. 3. Outside the new French Gate Centre, a band of brothers riddled with badgers rattle buckets. Miners' children's Christmas party. All around the world turned outside in. Paul, just 19, marching back with the shift and his granddad to Markham, Maine. End of the line, final man down, beneath that headgear, the last dinosaur in Doncaster. Thank you.
Fantastic. So, well done. So just to echo Martin Figura and Helen Ivory, terrific poem, Sarah. Well done, amazing. And we've got a link in the chat room to Sarah and books for hopefully Bloodlines will be part of that list. So, Philippa, do you want to do a biog for our winner? And I'll just read my comments.
Yeah, thanks, Daljet. The first prize winner, Elizabeth Murawski, is the author of 3 books of poetry and 3 chapbooks. The most recent chapbook, Still Life with Timex, has just won the Robert Phillips Chapbook Prize and will be published in the spring of 2021 by Texas Review Press. So that gives a clue as to where Elizabeth is from. Elizabeth has had nearly 300 poems published in journals or online. For individual poems, she has won, among others, the University of Canberra's International Poetry Prize and the Anne Stanford Poetry Prize. She has received 11 Pushcart Prize nominations and of course won first prize at Ledbury Poetry Competition with her poem Duplex. Born and raised in Chicago, she earned an MFA in creative writing from George Mason University. Elizabeth was employed 28 years as a training specialist for the US Census Bureau before retiring in 2005. She has conducted poetry workshops as an adjunct professor at the University of Virginia and Johns Hopkins University, and she currently resides in Alexandria, VA. So it gives me great pleasure to invite Elizabeth Murawski to read.
And before she does that, I'll just say a few words about the poem. So the winner is the poem called Duplex, which I guess it means sort of dividing things into pairs or dividing off things, one of the various meanings, which is important to the poem. It's one of those I kind of missed early on when I was judging. And when I went back to it over and over again, I started finding more and more things. I actually found it's a really complex poem, really rich. And it's full of doublings. So it's a poem that presents trauma as a displaced experience that might be presently lived, or it might be imagined as having been lived. So we've already got that doubleness there. The shock of this is set against the delicate stanzas that navigate us swiftly and helplessly through the drama. Compressed images of the Azalea, Leopardi, and the mailman create a succinct lyric mood which heightens the shock of the apparent event. The final image of the dying Gaul, who was first considered to be a Roman soldier, and the reference to Nagasaki, which of course came after Hiroshima, further extend the duplex theme and deny the narrative and memory from settling into a first impression. It's an absolute stunning poem. So I'm going to hand over to Elizabeth.
Hello. Is it happening? Okay. Okay, I'll start by saying thank you for letting me be here. I wasn't going to be able to make the trip, so this has all worked out very well. Duplex. March is always gloomy as the party, the unthinkable seeping in like silt. A dream of rape by the mailman. My scream so loud, I wonder if my neighbor hears me through the wall. Panic at the thought of knowing more. The dead azalea on the side of the house is all spikes and gray sticks. It looks like pictures of Nagasaki after the blast. The hair of the dying Gaul with his small but fatal chest wound. This next poem has an epigraph from the poet Hart Crane. In all things love. And the epigraph is, but some are twisted with the love of things irreconcilable. She would have given anything to live the day like an animal at his side. The sun could die as long as their bodies shone. She counted on him to lift the curse of beauty from her eyes, erase the edge of white birches. But then he grew such stubborn leaves, and she, deciduous, lost all hers. Now she is only at home in a steep canyon where the air is pure dare. His way lies in lime green woods, pitched precariously towards a moon that knows what happened to those candles she lit to the saints. They have flickered out, their wicks dumb as her heart, wanting this world to be enough. I was inspired or moved to write this poem about Nagasaki, and I didn't realize that it was going to tie in with the winning poem in this way, but there's a photograph that I had seen of a mother and her child holding her child, and it's right after the blast and the bomb has fallen. Small fires, Nagasaki. The wind, when it comes, is warm. There is no home that isn't leveled or burning. She barely feels the tug on her nipple or sees the blue-white dribble on her baby's chin, his swollen belly. The one tree left standing, its trunk and branches a Y incision, its few leaves whispering like witches. Leaning by itself on the sky, the gate of the temple resembles pi, an irrational number. Small fires flicker. Empty, she lets him suckle the child in her arms who may die or live without her. This last poem I wrote during the early part of the Iraq War, when we learned that people were being tortured, that my country was torturing people in the prisons overseas. And it was written, the article that I read about it was written in the New Yorker by the journalist Jane Meyer. It's called Abu Ghraib Suggests the Isenheim Altarpiece. Arms behind him shackled to the wall, Jamadi's knees buckle. He lands on air. Let us reposition him to stand erectly, Homo sapiens. Place the irons higher up on the window bars. When again he falls forward, hangs like Jesus from his wrists, call it faking, possum playing, persist. Lift him up on legs that ragdoll sag into a third collapse. The effect grotesque as Grunwald's Christ, bones about to pop from their sockets. The silence curious, raise the hood that hid a face. Asphyxiation, wag a finger past the eyes. It has begun, the turning of the skin to purple, the indigo of Tyre and Sidon. Note, as he's lowered to the floor, the stunning rush of blood from nose and mouth, the Red Sea. In this heat, let us blur the time of death, pack the flesh in ice like fish or meat, pretend he's merely sick, hooked to an IV, a patient on a stretcher. Destroy the crime scene, throw away the bloodied hood. It stings with the quality of mercy.
That's fantastic, Elizabeth. Well done. Amazing poems. Just before I hand over to Philippa to conclude things, just want to mention a couple of things in the chat room, which I really like. Linda Burnett mentioned of Sarah's reading, a good, strong Yorkshire voice, may you never become extinct. And we've heard a whole range of voices here, including Elizabeth, from around the world. So it's been fantastic hearing voices from North, South England and basically around the world. So it's been great. Thank you. Or from Britain, I should say, not England. And Jeffa Wright says, what a great event. I've always wanted to get to Ledbury and now I have. These readings have been wonderful and I'm stunned by the young poets. Events like these have made lockdown and this strange world bearable. Thank you. Indeed. Thank you, Ledbury. Thank you for this judging, for setting this up, Philippa. And there's a few links there, aren't there? There's one for a survey as well, Philippa. So thank you very much to the readers and congratulations. I hope to read more of your work in print. I'll hand back to Philippa.
Oh, thank you so much, Daljet. And I can only echo your thanks and praise and just such powerful reading and powerful poetry. Please, poets, readers, please put your collections in the chat. People are wanting to know them, and give links to me and I'll post on Twitter and on our website and so on. I can only add that all the readers today, I've got your addresses. I'm going to send you a brooch for participating in reading today. The next event we have is at 3 o'clock. So do tune in, and also there is a survey we'd love you to complete, good or bad. We just need to know how we're doing, and as you can see, it's very much a learning process. So just thanks once again to Daljet, thanks to my colleagues Chloe and Sandra, thanks to all the readers, and hope to see you all at some of the other events.